you said you aim to put your money where your mouth was in terms of racial equity, because racial justice and gentrification, these are all topics that you have been thinking about, simmering on, learning about in school, and certainly seeing in and around Minneapolis, which you had since moved to. Where does that fit into the thesis or the narrative of Good Neighbor Homes, and how has that been a North Star, so to speak, for the company?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So we sold the childhood home, and took the proceeds from that, and ultimately found myself in a partnership with the Falwell Neighborhood organization. In the city of Minneapolis, there are hundreds of neighborhood organizations that kind of oversee a small geography within the city, and Falwell was one of them. And there was kind of at this time, and still today, that there was this narrative that white people in a space is inherently bad or inherently gentrifying to a neighborhood. And I had moved to North Minneapolis a few years prior to this, kind of project happening. And I just started showing up to kind of experience that firsthand and learn about it and immerse myself in a new part of the city that I'd never lived in. So I started to volunteer and work for other organizations. I got to know my neighbors. I built relationships, right, with people that I'd never met living on, the south side of Minneapolis in the years that I'd been in the city. I was a whole different community, and a lot of these turned into friendships that I still have today. And kind of over the course of those 3 years, the Northside really started to feel like home. And it was, kind of the intersection again of relationships that I built with people who were doing similar work. The Falwell Neighborhood organization, they wanted to purchase this neighborhood corner store building that had been occupied since the 90s by bless her heart, sweet elderly woman who was just living upstairs in one of the 2 apartments up there, and wasn't doing anything with the commercial space. It just was vacant. And so, that building came up for sale and sat on the market for months. Falwell tried to figure out how to buy it, and ultimately the organization was not in a position to make that happen. But they were in a position to become a tenant and kind of be an anchor for that building, and really just to reserve it so that they could do the community work of finding a local entrepreneur from the neighborhood or from the North Side generally to start a business in this first floor space. And so I took the proceeds of the sale of my childhood home, bought this building, invested heavily in it, renovated both apartments upstairs, turned the commercial space downstairs into basically a gray shell, just a white shell. Someone can move into it, make it their own immediately, for the neighborhood to do that. That was a 3-year-long project that ultimately ended up in us finding Markella Smith, who opened up the Dream Shop, which is a gift shop on the North Side full of a bunch of art, knickknacks, all the classic stuff you think about in a little gift shop, but is all prioritizing North Side vendors, people of color, giving them kind of a space to sell their products, a physical store that many of them didn't have. So really cool project. Also taught me an immense amount, but was so gratifying at the end. I say the end, which is sad to say, but I sold the building to my first tenant. So she bought the building. Another Black entrepreneur bought the building from me last fall, and now is the owner of a newly renovated corner store building, which she'll ultimately move her business into, I think, in the long term. So it was really, really full cycle on that one.